Today we're going to be talking about Lesson 17.4, which is about Wilson and the Mexican Revolution. You should be following along with your review sheet so that you can go ahead and fill that out as we go. Go ahead and get started here. When Mexico erupted in a revolution, the United States was drawn into this conflict because of economic ties that the United States had with Mexico. In the 1910 election, Diaz he jailed his opponent, who happened to be Francisco Maduro. He also controlled the outcome of the election. When the ballots were counted, he had received 1 million votes, while Maduro had less than 200 votes. He ends up putting Maduro in jail. When he gets out of jail, he actually flees Texas. He declared himself the Mexican president. He calls for a revolution, and then he comes to the United States. When he returns to Mexico in November, he found that there was a band of rebels that were already active there, and he kind of helped to pick up and lead that revolution. The Mexican Revolution unfolded as a series of uprisings. There were lots of different parts of this uprisings that occurred in various parts of Mexico. In the south, you had a leader by Emiliano Zapata. You won't have to know Zapata. He'd seized force in the south, and he wanted to return the land to the native peoples. You won't have to know him as far as the test. Pancho Villa, you will really need to know. He led a revolt against Diaz. The rebellion spread, and Diaz resigns and ends up going to France. He's going to come back here in a little bit later, though. In November, Maduro was elected as the president of Mexico. Diaz was not very popular, and he tried to establish a democratic government, but he had been overthrown by another gentleman, okay, and that was Horta. The European nations didn't really recognize Horta's government, they did recognize Horta's government, but the United States really didn't. In 1914, Woodrow Wilson actually authorized arms sales to people who wanted to overthrow Horta's army and what was going on there. In April 9th of 1914, you have some soldiers that were in Tampico Bay, and they went on shore to get supplies and things, and while they were on shore, they were arrested. As soon as the Mexicans realized that they were actually U.S. soldiers, they knew that was going to be a problem. They didn't want to upset the United States and possibly risk a threat of invasion by them. And so they apologized, they released them, but America decided that that wasn't quite enough. Okay, the U.S. demanded that they have a more formal apology, that they have to salute to the American flag. When Horta refused, Congress approved that we could use force against Mexico and Horta. While Congress was trying to get this approved to go in and use force, there's a German ship that's loaded with weapons that's heading towards Veracruz, the city in Mexico. And of course, if they have weapons, they're going to be able to help prepare Mexico to revolt against the United States. So Wilson goes ahead and orders the U.S. Navy to seize the city of Veracruz in what was called the Battle of Veracruz. 17 Americans died during this battle, but 300 Mexicans died. The city was occupied for the next 6 months. In order to not have another war, Argentina, Brazil, Chile, they happened to help negotiate between the United States and Mexico, and war was avoided. Horta struggled to stay in power. There was a lot of pressure against him within Mexico. Again, he wasn't a very popular president. Eventually, he resigns, and he goes to Spain. You have another person who comes into the picture, Carranza. He declares himself the leader in August of 1914. Now think about what else is going on in 1914. That's when World War I is also breaking out. So you've got Zapata who doesn't like him. You've got Pancho Villa who doesn't like him. United States did like him, but of course Villa did not. And Villa wasn't happy with the U.S.'s support of him. And so Pancho Villa actually invades the United States. He takes the fighting up into New Mexico. And he strikes a small town there. He burns the town. 17 Americans were killed. This is very important, and this is what you should put on your review sheet for Pancho Villa, is he was the one who invaded the United States. It was the first invasion of the United States since the War of 1812 with Great Britain. President Wilson ordered then John J. Pershing. We'll learn a lot more about him in World War I. But he had him lead more than 10,000 troops into Mexico to search for him. They searched for him for 11 months, but they were never able to find him. The search was called off because we start becoming a little more concerned about World War I and other events. Carranza, he puts a new constitution into effect. Fighting in Mexico continues until 1920, which is after the World War I actually ends. Many Mexicans during this time were not happy with Mexico. As you can tell from all the different leaders that we've kind of talked about, that Mexico was not very stable during this time. Life was not very good for the Mexican citizens, so you have a lot of them who immigrate to the United States in search of a more stable or a little better life. Now, the other thing you're going to see on the review sheet that it's not on the PowerPoint that we need to talk about just a little bit is going to be number 4. Discuss the differences between imperialism and isolationism. I think we should know what imperialism means already. Imperialists were the people who wanted to go and expand territories, take control of places for the United States. We've talked about this a little bit before, but remember, we kind of thought we had a moral duty to expand our values and our beliefs into other countries. We thought we were superior, and we needed to take those values to them. We were also afraid that if we didn't go into some of these other countries, that some other country might, and then we wouldn't be able to use it for the natural resources and things. Isolationism means that you're going to keep to yourself and that we shouldn't go into other places. We weren't very well liked, especially in Latin America. There was a cry of Yankee go home, even before that we had built the Panama Canal. Other countries weren't very happy with us going into them as well. And so that was something that, wasn't very popular at that time. There's one other item on the review sheet I don't think that we talked about, and that's number 6 on lesson 4, Sir Robert Baden-Powell. What you need to know about him is he was an army officer, and he was of the British Empire, and he's the one that founded the Boy Scouts, which became very popular. Became very popular in the United States during this time. They taught tracking, woodcraft, wilderness survival. Now, if you remember, Roosevelt was very much an outdoorsman and probably led to some of the popularity of the Boy Scouts during this time. That should do it as far as for today's lesson. Please make sure you continue to fill out your review sheet, get everything filled out, and I will see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.